Hi. This is really the best session to be speaking, just immediately after lunch, isn't it? All right, I'll try to make it interesting. A disclaimer, right? Whatever you hear today is something, or most of it is stuff which you are already doing, but it will serve to be a solid validation. All right, so I was in Malaysia the last 2 days visiting some of the larger organizations in Kuala Lumpur, and I was like sharing with them, this is some of the research from Harvard, and they felt so good. Wow, this is really resonating with what we are doing. All right, we are developing our leaders around these capabilities. So that's the good news. Okay. So I'll start off by explaining why this research, why is HBR now really looking at these 10 critical capabilities? Because a lot has actually transformed, right? A lot has actually happened in the last 2 to 3 years, including that photograph over there. I couldn't recognize myself. That was 2.5 years just before pandemic, when I was like losing a lot of weight. And then when the gyms were closed, I started working out from home and I tore my muscle. And then for 1.5 years, I just kept on putting on more and more weight and can't recognize myself, right? So it's changed. And then we'll move on to looking at some of the other research from Harvard. And finally, what are some of the new innovations on skill building? All right, so these are the 5 driving forces which have gotten organizations to look at, why do we need new capabilities in our people? All right. So let's start with the first one, which is the social and organizational reconfiguration. Everyone is asking for transparency in organizations, right? Gone are the days where it is shareholder capitalism. Right now it is stakeholder capitalism, isn't it? Right? And organizations need to be agile, flexible. And what we have actually also seen is there's a power balance within organizations, right? And employees, they want to be aligned to the purpose of the organization. It's no longer about the economics of the organization, all right? So it's all about purpose-driven leadership in organizations, right? And then there's so much of discussions around diversity, equity, inclusion, right? So beyond traditional hierarchies and contracts, what is actually happening is networks and social and external collaborations will make leadership more horizontal, shared and collective. All right, so that's the first super change which is happening. The second one is the all-inclusive global talent market, right? So we spoke about DEI, much more prevalent in the US, the gig economy, right? Right now, people like me are forced to work longer years, right? I can't retire so soon. And what is it resulting in? Multi-generational workforce, right? So how do we interact with my children who are also probably in the same company, right? Ideologies are very different. And it's all about boundaryless work. The third bucket, a truly connected world, right? So work is virtual. It's not about, I can work from home or I work from office. It's actually work from anywhere. Work from anywhere, right? Including from a holiday resort, right? And it's boundaryless once again. 20 years ago, I read this book by Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. How many of you have actually read the book? Right, so he started speaking at that point in time how, the world is getting flat. Work which is done in India can be, outsourced, or work done in the US could be outsourced to India, etc. And actually we are seeing more of this, right? Exponential technology change. So you have got robots, you have got AI, Internet of Things, blockchain, and all of this is actually reshaping the entire work ecosystem, right? And therefore, all of this is resulting in rapid business reinvention. And finally, right, if you look at, okay, This doesn't have a pointer. Anyway, and finally, the human automation collaboration, right? So IR 5.0, I understand there were some discussions around it. So analytics, algorithms, big data, AI, what are they doing? They're actually increasingly abolishing work which was, previously performed by us. But at the same time, it's also creating new work at the interface of human and automation. So these are all the driving forces which have resulted in organizations looking at transformation differently, at the same time looking at what are the critical capabilities which are required in today's leaders. So moving forward, right? So this is research which was published in the beginning of this year in HBR by Strategy N. There's someone from PwC over here. Anyone here? I understand that PwC, yourself, right? So this was actually published by your consultants in HBR, and I'm reusing it, right? So essentially what he's looking at is organizations really need to transform, right? So Salim from BCG explained this. Why do you need to transform? To advance meaningful change in the organization in order to build new forms of competitive advantage, right? And what do leaders need to do? They need to reimagine, right? What is the organization's place in the world, right? And for there to be meaningful change, leaders need to be willing to challenge every aspect of the company, its purpose, its business model, its operating model, the people, and also themselves, right? So essentially what are you doing? You are starting with a blank canvas altogether. This is a very important point. If we transform, but we do not perform, what's going to happen? Right? So you're investing a lot in transformation, but you're not doing anything about the current performance. Yeah. We have no here and now. And if we are only performing and we don't transform, what's going to happen? We have no future, isn't it? Right? So this is exactly the research. Essentially, the type of leaders whom we require are probably a new breed. Right? All this while, senior leaders, they would formulate the strategy in the organization and then they leave the execution to the rest of the organization. But today, what is required are strategic executors. Right? So what Strategy N did was they spoke to about 1,500 senior leaders in organizations, including probably half of them were CEOs. Right? So a strategy executor is one who has got bold, ambitious ideas as well as practical capabilities needed to realize the vision. For example, right, if you look at Starbucks, the CEO was very clear. This is the vision of our organization. We want to be third in our consumers' life cycle. What does it mean? Right? The bulk of a consumer's time is spent at home, next at work, and Starbucks wants to be the third place. Right? So it was very, very clear, his positioning on where Starbucks need to be. And then he really went all the way down to the execution. What needs to be done in each of these Starbucks chains? Right? How do you go about positioning the coffee machines? Do you use powdered coffee or do you grind the beans? What's the necessity of having the aroma in the organization, the type of music, etc. All of this was actually dictated all the way from the top. Right? So that's what's required. You need tech-savvy humanists. Right? Why tech-savvy humanists? Because, you can be a tech leader, but if you lack that empathy, right? If you lack that empathy, that resilience, that understanding and that caring of your employees, then you're going to fail. All right? So it's important for leaders to be tech-savvy humanists. What else? High integrity politician, which means that you need to be able to nicely navigate the organization, navigate the entire ecosystem, and at the same time, you are very, very clear on always doing the right thing. Right? Moving on, a humble hero. Right? Humble hero. Paradox, isn't it? Not necessary. Right? So essentially what strategy N found out was that organizations need to be led by heroes who are really courageous. At the same time, there's so much of empathy which is emanating from them. Globally minded localists. Right? So what does it mean? You are global, at the same time you are local. Right? So there's an amazing article also in HBR by Professor Pankaj Gamarat, right, where he explains the 3A of globalization. Okay, do some research, go and find out what he's actually speaking. Firstly, he says that, adaptation is very important. So CEOs, senior leaders need to understand that when I'm going into a new market, I need to adapt to the needs. At the same time, there's an element of arbitrage. There might be something where, talent is huge in India, for example, or manufacturing is huge in Vietnam. How can I arbitrage that capability? And finally, it's the scale which is required, right? And then the tradition innovator. Okay, how many of you have heard of this term, ambidextrous organization or the ambidextrous CEO? Right? Most of you have. So essentially, it's not only about worrying about today, it is about worrying about tomorrow, our future. Where do we stand? Right? So there's another amazing framework by Professor Vijay Govindarajan, where he looks at, the 3-box paradigm. The first box is, what do I need to do today to ensure that I'm profitable? All right, so the entire concept of operational efficiency, increasing productivity, etc. The next box is, what do I need to selectively forget? I need to selectively forget some of the procedures which will not serve my need in the future. And thirdly, what do I need to do to bring the organization to a new vision? All right, that's what ambidextrous organizations are all about. So this is from strategy N. And now let's look at what is our own Professor Linda Hill saying. Right? So Professor Linda Hill is the chair of leadership at Harvard Business School. And she says that, to transform the organizations, leaders need to be courageous to transform themselves first. All right? They need to be hungry to learn. Right? This whole concept of learning agility. All right, they must be the first to be hungry to learn to adapt. Right? So she says that in her research, speaking to more than 500 CEOs, adaptability is the most important qualities CEOs are looking at in their teams. What else? It's that curiosity, the hunger to learn. Right? Curiosity involves keeping a beginner's mindset, which allows you to explore situations and problems without bias. All right? So now let's look at what are some of these 6 skills Professor Linda Hill mentions. Number 1 is, you need to be a catalyst. A catalyst is one who is like facilitating the entire ecosystem. When your people come to you, your work is to ensure that things get done fast for this person. Right? So what happens in a chemical reaction? The catalyst does not change. It remains. It just facilitates. It speeds up the entire chemical reaction. That's what you as a senior leader need to do. Right? You need to be a catalyst. And you need to have this contextual intelligence. Contextual intelligence means that you understand the outside-in perspective as well as the inside-out perspective. Right? Moving forward, trust and let go. All right, that is so important. In the pandemic, people were all struggling. My people are working or not? Are they working? Right? So trust and let go. We need to curate talent. What does curate talent means? All right, develop people to be having skills which resonate with the future. All right. At the same time, whenever you are doing an interview, conducting an interview, what's the final question you need to ask the interviewee? It's not about the skills which he has or she has. It is about whether this person has the hunger to learn something new. That is the most important. Because whatever skills which we have, all of this will become redundant one day. Right? But is this person hungry to learn something new? That is the most important quality which is required. All right? And then building partnerships, these ecosystems, etc. That's all fine. Be an explorer. Again, you begin with a beginner's mindset, the curiosity element. And then be courageous. This whole concept of psychological safety from Professor Amy Edmondson. Right? Lots of podcasts over there. Please listen to this. Right? There's a lot of good stuff over there. And organizations who provide a psychological safe haven for their people, they are known. Right? Research has actually shown that they do much better on the stock market compared to organizations or leaders who do not provide the psychological safe environment for their people. And finally, right, very important, we need to be purpose-led leaders. So, how does all of this research from strategy and Professor Linda Hill's work, etc., come together? This is where Harvard Business Review came up with these 10 critical capabilities. And once again, I'm sure at least 7 of these, all right, are already stuff which you are driving in the organization. Right? So, leading authentically, right? Leaders need to be vulnerable. Not to be shy that, I do not know some stuff. It's all right, but together as a team, we will navigate this complexity. All right, so leading authentically means, aligning the leadership approach with the core values, with purpose, demonstrating emotional intelligence. That's so important. And finally, humility. That's what leading authentically means. All right? Leading strategically means knowing, understanding where I need to play, where the organization need to play, what are the resources I require, how can I differentiate myself from the other organization. That's the meaning of leading strategically. Right? Understanding what are the strategic priorities, blah, blah, blah. Leading teams that deliver, managing priorities, right? Developing others, right? Straightforward, huh? And then understanding that business acumen is so important. It's important for us to understand that, how does a decision affect the entire organization? Many a time organizations are siloed. How can leaders lead with an enterprise-wide mindset? That's so important, right? And then driving digital intelligence, that's straightforward. A lot of organizations are doing that, right? Keeping digital skills current. And then championing inclusion. A lot published on this, right? But many a times, when you read a HBR article, it speaks about Black Lives Matter, etc., may not be relevant in some parts of the world. So you just be careful about, how do you make some of these elements more relevant to you. All right, resilience, it's about, how fast we can stand up after failures, all right, and leading through uncertainty, etc. So all of this is what HBR believes to be the 10 critical capabilities which are required. But underlying all of this are these superpowers, right? So these superpowers are elements of a leader's personal compass, right? Actually, the pandemic has taught a lot of leaders about self-awareness. There's this amazing saying, until you don't make the subconscious conscious, it will keep on sabotaging us. You do not know. Actually, all of us as leaders, our first 5 years, our work life, etc., has just nurtured us the way we behave today. Right? Are we humble enough to actually learn? Are we humble enough to actually bring the weeds in our mind? Are we humble enough to be self-aware that there are some of our characteristics, some of our behaviors which are actually sabotaging us? I'll give you a simple example, right? My daughter is, of course, 24 years old right now. When she was 12 years old, right, she was going for her St. John's ambulance activity on a Saturday. So she told me, Papa, can I have some money? I gave her a $10 note because I had no change. And I told her that, when your father used to go to work, he used to take 20 cents. Right? She said, okay, $10 is fine. And then in the end, towards the end of the day, she came back and I asked her, so what did you do with the $10? Where's the balance change? She said, oh, I was at the MRT station. There was this busker who was playing the violin. I just loved the way he was playing. I was just watching him for 30 minutes. I was appreciating, I like violin. I was appreciating it, but Papa, I realized that no one even gave him 10 cents. So I gave him that $10. And I told her, oh, your father works so hard for the money and you just give a $10 bill to someone? She said, and this is what she corrected me. She told me, Papa, you can earn that $10 in a few minutes. Let's not forget, the guy would have taken years to perfect his art of violin playing. There were so many people who were just passing by, not giving him anything. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that was the day when it changed my life. And that was the day when she taught me that by giving, you never become poor. So are we humble to actually, and why? Because I grew up in a poor family. All right, there were 6 of us. Survival of the fittest, right? And therefore I was grained with all those values. And then I needed someone to correct me, to make it clear that, hey, remove that weed from your mind. That is what self-awareness is all about. The rest of it is straightforward. So let's move on. What is Harvard doing about this? This is where it becomes exciting. You have the 10 capabilities. We are breaking that 10 capabilities into skills. Each of these skills, we are in turn breaking it into micro skills. And this is what we are doing. For example, communicating with impact. These are the skills and these are the micro skills. Can we come up with a platform where you as a leader or any of your employees could actually go in and develop herself around this? Not necessarily about reading or watching videos, etc. Let's bring it to the next level. How can this person have an experience? All right, whatever the person has learned, how can he bring it to the next step? That is what we are doing. All right, so what HBR is doing is we are providing some experiential element in the micro skill building, right? So there's some experiential learning. It's focused on how do you go about applying that learning, right? And I'll show you some short videos of this, all right? So they are like self-assessment. I get into the system, I tell myself, okay, when it comes to coaching, wow, I'm only at 3 out of 10. This is what I need to do. I need to watch some short videos. I need to do a little bit of practice, blah, 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 blah. All right, this is how it's going to work. Right? And then you earn some points, etc. And then you get a Harvard badge for having completed that micro skill. So all of these are like stuff which is coming. Let's look at this behavioral coaching element in one of those micro skills. Can you please play this video, sir?
All right, great. We'll make sure to do so. All right, Anya, in a moment, you will see Lisa and your scenario will have begun. Have fun, good luck, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Sounds good.
Hi, Anya. You said you wanted to speak with me?
Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you?
It's all AI,
I'm all right.
virtual reality.
I wanted to chat today just because I've noticed a couple things about your interactions with our colleagues over the past couple of weeks. And I first of all just wanted to check and see everything's going okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, I thought, but I'm sorry, there's something about my interactions with the team and now you're checking on me? I'm sorry, what's going on?
Sure. I wanted to think back to our staff meeting last week, where I noticed that you reacted to something that Teo said in sort of a very strong way, and it took me aback. What was going on there? How did you experience that?
I've been having some communication issues with Teo. something happened with the McManus project recently. He should have handled a piece of urgent business that we needed to attend to, and he was non-responsive, and I ended up having to take care of the work myself.
Well, that sounds really frustrating. I can see why you're having some challenges there. Is there anything I can do to help in terms of talking with him directly about his tasks?
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not just that, because there are plenty of reasons why anyone might not be available at any given time. It was the fact that there was no acknowledgement of it. Nothing ever came of it. He never addressed it with me. So that's, I wanted to make sure that he understood that wasn't acceptable.
And do you think that's that he now understands that based on what you said to him?
Well, I don't think he's going to do it again.
How do you think this will work out going forward? Are you how?
Okay, pause simulation. Yep. And Michael, I'll sort of talk through the debrief just in the interest of time. So typically after this, first of all, great job on this scenario. I think you were off to a good start there. But typically what would happen is you would, schedule.
Okay, right. So this is what is, being developed right now. So essentially what Anya had done was she had gone through the entire coaching module, the behavioral coaching module, etc., and then she was put onto a test. Right? So what did you realize? Actually, there was hardly any empathy in the entire coaching. Right? She was like so cold, The entire non-verbal cues were like, my God, there was hardly anything where you were trying to resonate with the other person. So the system is actually able to provide that kind of detailed feedback based on the AI, VR, etc. All right, so that's bringing learning to the next level. It's not about knowing. It's about doing and the being element. That is the focus of Harvard today. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'm quite certain I finished it within 40 minutes, yeah? Any questions for me? Okay, yes. Ego. Yeah. I think that's the element of that self-awareness, Yeah. Yeah, this is something which I've learned from someone who teaches spiritual leadership to me. And he says that, okay, at the end of the day, all right, whether you believe it or not, there is a soul or a spiritual spark in us. It's so tiny, right? When a person leaves the body, when a person dies, that element just leaves the body. It's so tiny, but our ego is so huge. So how can we ensure that our ego is as small as that?
I guess it's just a bit of sharing.
Yeah.
I think people tend to want to prove that they are right.
Yeah.
So I think that's also.
Okay. Correct. Yeah. It is that at the same time, as leaders, it's important for us to understand that when we are getting into a coaching conversation, or even a conversation with, a fellow colleague or anyone else, it's important for us that we approach it from a non-judgmental stance. But what happens is, it's the ego element, and it's all the entire conditioning which we are bringing into the conversation. For example, if you read Peter, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, Peter Senge. All right, so he has got an amazing body of work. All right, and I like this particular framework where he says, just give me a minute, I'll show you this particular slide, okay? Can you just give me a minute? Yeah? I think this is going to be path-breaking for some of us. So I teach learning agility and growth mindset, etc. I just wanted to show this particular set. Okay. It's about shifting mental model. Just look at this. Start from the lowest rung of the ladder. Right? So, Rashmi, she misses a deadline for an assignment. She gives no apology or explanation and she goes on sick leave. What does the manager do? All right, so he observes or she observes, all right, observable data and experiences, and then the manager starts being very selective. Because of the manager's conditioning, he's selective. All right, what does he do? I select data from what I observe. So instead of just Rashmi missing a deadline for the assignment, she gives no apology. Immediately the manager starts thinking, Rashmi deliberately took leave to get away from the assignment. All right, she avoided talking to me as well. And then what happens with the monkey mind? The manager starts adding based on the cultural nuance, the person's upbringing, what he has been reading, watching, etc. Rashmi would have faked the illness, all right, and lied. She was not interested in the assignment. And then the monkey mind keeps on going further, making assumptions based on the meanings he or she have added. Or Rashmi is not interested in taking up additional responsibilities. She's also very irresponsible. And then you adopt beliefs about the world. Since Rashmi is unwilling and irresponsible, I cannot trust her and avoid giving her any additional responsibilities in future. And then you take actions. I don't trust Rashmi anymore. I'm curt with her and I will not include her in future projects. Ladies and gentlemen, where did it start? It started over here. She just missed a deadline. Right? So we started adding a lot of meaning to it and finally we come to a conclusion. That's the meaning of not being judgmental. Okay? Sorry, I extrapolated a little bit from that ego effect. All right, thank you very much. In the event that you'd like me to do something on growth mindset and learning agility, just drop me an email. It's complimentary. It's a service from Harvard Business School to any corporation. So we do a lot of this. Yes. Sure. Okay, right. So actually what we are seeing a lot, right? So we do lots of leadership development programs for organization. Some of the most popular themes are around empathy, all right, purpose-driven leadership, leading with a growth mindset. It's about, having an enterprise-wide leadership. And very important, it's about these qualities. I'm going to go back to this. It's about what can we do as far as these deep human skills. Previously, it was more on functional skills. A lot of focus was on functional skills. But right now, it's authenticity, empathy, active listening, curiosity. Right? A lot of this, resilience. How do you build resilience in people? How can you provide a psychological safe environment for people so that even if you fail, it's all right. It's about what you learn from that failure. Okay, I like this infographic. It's about the deep human skills which somehow we have forgotten. Thank you, Nadia. Okay, so with that, thank you very much.